Okay, welcome to our webinar today, where we're going to be launching the new Micro OCS X10. I'd like to remind you before we start, I should say, that in our control panel over there, you will have a Q&A tab where at any time you can ask questions. And we will certainly make time at the end to answer all your questions, so don't hesitate. As you think of your question, go ahead and type it in the Q&A tab. Now, it's just past the top of the hour. We'll give folks a chance who are running a little bit behind to get logged in and get ready. And while we're doing that, while we're waiting for them to get started, we're going to go ahead and play a completely cheesy video that some of you may have already seen that we did a few days ago. And try and not wince too hard, but it's a fun little video that we did. It just lasts about 2 minutes and 20 seconds. We'll go ahead and kick things off with that. Ooh, I've got something pretty exciting here. The new Micro OCS X10. Let's take a look. Let's get this open and see what's inside. Got the user's guide, quick reference guide at least. Some protective foam. There's the unit right there. Looks pretty sleek. Not bad for an industrial unit. What is that? Maybe an inch at the front. 2.5 inches total. Not bad. Here's the connectors. Looks like we're also including metal clamps with this one. Nice. Looks like all the connections are on the back. I really like that about the Micro OCS. Yep, they're all here. Mini USB for programming. A couple of serial ports. CAN port. Ethernet port. Here's where you bring in the power. And there's those 3 connectors for those 30 I/O points. Wow. Think of the applications with 30 I/O built in. About the only thing that isn't on the back is the micro SD slot. I think that's on the side here. Yep, there it is. All right, let's flip it over and power it up and see what that screen looks like. All right, apply power and flip it over. Wow, already booted up. That's pretty fast. Nice looking screen. 10 inches diagonal. Widescreen aspect ratio. Pretty cool. Nice graphic. Can't wait to play with this baby. Okay, so we've had our quick look video-wise at the Micro X10. For those of you who just joined us, we just thought we would kick off the webinar with that little bit of cheese, but it was hopefully a good chance for you to see the unit a little more close up. Let's take a look at our agenda for today. Okay, and again, I will remind you one more time, don't hesitate to post your questions in the Q&A tab in the big marker control panel. But here's our agenda for today. We're going to let you know what the Micro OCS is. We're going to take a look at where it fits in the OCS lineup. Talk, of course, about product features. We're going to take a look at where it fits not only in the Horner lineup, but also where it fits in the controller market in general. Take a look at some other similarly priced products. Also, we're going to take a look at the new X10 and compare it against one of our other products in the XL series line, the EXL10. Both have 10-inch screens. What are the differences? We're going to take a look at the sales and technical material that's available. And as I mentioned, we're going to answer your questions. Okay, let's roll. What is the new Micro OCS X10? So, as you could expect, it's the newest Horner OCS All-in-one Controller. And for those of you who are our channel partners, We kind of previewed this product for those folks back in December, but we're launching it to the world today. So it is, as I've mentioned, a member of the Micro OCS series, and that series is designed to provide a lot of functionality at an entry-level price. We feel like, and hopefully you'll agree, that it's a product that really outshines the competition in its price class, and it is also the first product that Horner has offered in a 10-inch widescreen format, and it has a terrific price of $949. Yes, the X10 is part of the Micro OCS series. We like to say is the best all-in-one controller for simple applications. Whereas our XL series, we feel like, is the performance leader in all-in-one controllers. So now that we're a couple years into the product line, the Micro OCS now has 4 models, ranging from the Micro X2, which is the new entry level, the 4-inch, 7-inch, and now the 10-inch. And they all share one thing in common for sure, and that is they all have terrific price tag. And again, we'd like to say they are the best all-in-one controllers for simple applications. For those of you who aren't familiar with all-in-one control, and I think most of you are at this point, but maybe not everyone is, what Horner calls an all-in-one controller is a product that combines the functionality of a PLC with an operator interface, with built-in I/O, the ability to add extra I/O as well externally, with a lot of networking capability, as well as logic, I/O, operator interface, and networking. All 4 things. That's what we call an all-in-one controller. And in the lower right-hand corner there, you see that little cube next to the Micro OCS symbol. That's kind of our logo that kind of represents the 4 different elements of control, or of automation, I should say, with our all-in-one controller products. Okay, now let's take a look specifically at the Micro OCS. It is fully washdown rated, so it can certainly be used in a NEMA 4X application or an IP66 application. It's got a pretty slim profile. It will fit in locations that don't have a lot of depth, which is nice. And we feel like it has an efficient use of space in that all the connections are on the back. So there's really nothing on the side except for the memory card slot. So that kind of frees up some real estate for other things. From a physical standpoint, it's about 6.5 inches tall by 10.5 inches wide, and it's about 2 inches deep. And it utilizes a standard Horner panel cutout. Now, it's not an industry standard panel cutout. Those really don't exist in the larger sizes. However, it is a standard Horner cutout, and we'll talk about the advantages of that in a little bit. All right, let's take a look at the screen. So it's got a 1024 by 600 resolution touchscreen. That's plenty of pixels to show good detailed graphics. With the Micro series, you have the ability to configure up to 250 different unique screens with up to 100 objects per screen. So for, again, most simple applications, that's plenty of objects, plenty of screens to be able to show off your application. From a brightness standpoint, it's 340 nits. Now, keep in mind, the larger the display, the more light that needs to be shown over the entire panel. So 340 nits is actually a pretty good rating for a panel of its size. Now, like almost all of our newer products, the Micro OCS X10 does not have physical function keys. It has function keys that can be recalled or called out by touching the upper right-hand corner of the screen. They slide out when you need them. It supports 16-bit color, so you can effectively render whatever image that you want to show on the screen. And it uses a resistive touchscreen. And with industrial applications, we feel like resistive touchscreens offer the most reliability. And even though they don't support all the gestures that you might run into, we will be in the future supporting simple single finger gestures such as swipe, flick, etc. Okay? It's not a multi-touch screen. Now looking inside at the logic CPU. So when we designed the Micro OCS X10, we intended to release it to the market with 256K for logic programming space. But before launch, we decided to go ahead and double it. And a lot of our competitors are down around 16K or even less than 1K. So we think you'll find there's ample space for just about whatever, straightforward application you can come up with. From a variable standpoint, it supports up to 5,000 word type variables and 2,048 bit type variables. It has a very respectable logic scan rate of 0.4 milliseconds per K. No, it doesn't challenge the XL series or the XL Plus, but it is a very effective scan rate for, again, most applications. And then from a instruction set standpoint, it supports integer, double integer, and floating point math. And you can configure up to 4 PID loops with auto-tuning capability if you choose. From a logic standpoint, it supports advanced ladder logic, both register-based and tag-based, as well as standard IEC 61131 languages. It doesn't support the enhanced 1131 that we'll be releasing, or we have released with Seascape 9.9 Service Pack 4, but it does handle IEC, just our standard basic capability. Now let's take a look at built-in I/O. With the Micro series, you have 2 models available with every size. The Model R that has a total of 26 points, and the Model A with 30 points. And we'll talk about what makes up those points here in a second. And then from an I/O memory standpoint, if you need to add external I/O, there's plenty of available memory for doing that. Physically, the I/O is accessed using removable terminals. Those removable terminals are easily removed with a small screwdriver for convenience, and they accept, from a wiring standpoint, they accept wires between 14 and 24 gauge, and it is a screw-type plug on each of the terminals. The terminals are color-coded, so the orange terminals handle either digital inputs or analog I/O. The black terminal handles outputs. Both the plugs as well as the terminals themselves are clearly silkscreened, and we have made sure that each of the 3 I/O terminals is a different number of terminals to help minimize the potential for error. All right, let's dive into the digital inputs. You've got 12 digital inputs, 4 of which can be used for high-speed counting. Now, the high-speed counting is pretty fast at 500 kilohertz. That's much faster than a lot of the competition, but it's relatively straightforward high-speed counting. Nothing super advanced. You can do quadrature, you can do totalizing, that sort of thing. Now, the inputs are either positive logic or negative logic. You just have to configure in the Seascape software which you need. Now, most times you're going to want positive logic, which means that you're going to run the positive voltage through the switch into the input terminal. With negative logic, you run the 0 volt signal in through the switch into the terminal. But remember, all 12 inputs need to either be positive logic or negative logic. Sometimes positive logic is called syncing on the input side, and then negative logic is called sourcing on the input side. And regardless of what you choose, there are no jumpers for configuration. Now, when you get to the outputs, that's where the Model R and the Model A differ. So on the Model A, that has 12 solid-state outputs where 2 can be used for high-speed signals, such as PWM, frequencies up to 65K, or CAM outputs. The first 4 outputs are grouped together, with the first 2 being high-speed, and then the last 8 are grouped together. And again, you can support half-amp solid-state outputs with all 12 outputs. With the Model R, it offers primarily relays. It has 8 total outputs, 6 of which are Form A isolated relays, each that can support 3 amps per point with voltages up to 60 volts AC or 30 volts DC. And then you've also got 2 solid-state outputs for high speed. Let's take a closer look at those solid-state outputs. Now, if you use those solid-state outputs in syncing mode, they can sync up to half an amp, which is pretty effective. And for high-speed outputs, usually syncing is just fine. However, if you need sourcing outputs, you can wire them that way, but you're only going to get about 2.4 milliamps of drive capability. So it may require an interposing device if you have higher current than that, and you have to have solid state. Okay, so again, the main differences between the Model A and the Model R are on the output side. On the analog side, they're the same. They each have 4 inputs and 2 outputs on the analog side with 12-bit resolution. Now you have your choice on the input side between 4 to 20 milliamps or RTD with a limited temperature range. Now the standard extended temperature range for RTDs is, I believe, about -200 to +850 C. but a lot of the applications fall within a much narrower range than that. So we went ahead and decided to support a narrower range for the Micro series. So we can support -50 to +200C, which is about -58 to +392. And then all the analog inputs are fault tolerant. The diagram you see on the screen there is showing RTD inputs and 4 to 20 milliamp outputs. This next diagram illustrates wiring up 4 to 20 milliamp inputs. Now the accuracy is pretty reasonable at about 1.5%, but you have the ability to calibrate them in the field pretty simply, and you can greatly exceed that accuracy level. And again, regardless of whether you're talking digital or analog I/O, there are no jumpers for I/O configuration. From a communication standpoint, you can program the unit a variety of ways, but very commonly over USB mini B, not micro B, but mini B. And a mini B cable is included with both the starter kit and the Horner programming cable kit. We'll talk about the starter kit a little bit later. Also, from a serial port standpoint, you have 2 active serial ports on a single modular jack. One that's RS-232, those are the MJ1 pins, and then the MJ2 pins on the same modular jack are for RS-485. And with the Micro series, we primarily support Modbus RTU, master and slave, along with sending and receiving ASCII characters, and I believe we also support maybe even GPS protocol. And then there also is another modular jack that's red for the built-in CAN port. And the CAN port is for C-SCAN protocol, which is the Horner standard protocol for I/O expansion, for using Smart Rail, Smart Sticks, and Smart Block to add additional I/O to the unit. Now, you can also use C-SCAN for controller-to-controller communications if you had multiple controllers in the same application, for instance. Now, if you need other CAN protocols like CAN Open or J1939, or maybe some other serial protocols beyond just Modbus and ASCII, the XL series supports all those. So you can make a choice for one of those products instead. And just like with the I/O, there are no jumpers that need to be set for communications related settings such as RS-485 termination or bias. Again, all done from software, in this case, the system menu. Okay, now let's turn our attention to Ethernet. And the Micro series, while it's not a communications powerhouse like the XL is, it does do a very nice job of supporting the most popular Ethernet protocols. And that would be Modbus TCP as either a server or a client, master slave if you want to use the less correct terminology. It also supports Ethernet IP as an I/O device, so it can hang off of an Ethernet IP network, and an Ethernet IP scanner or maybe a Logix CPU as a master could see this as a high-speed remote I/O device with up to 128 words each direction. So that would be a typical Ethernet IP implementation with the Micro series product. And then we also support something called Ethernet Global Data, which is a terrific protocol for just moving chunks of data from controller to controller over Ethernet. And in addition to the industrial protocols, we support WebMI for remote monitoring and control. You can send emails with the Micro series. You can use FTP to transfer files back and forth to the memory card. Now, if you need more advanced protocols like BACnet IP or maybe Logix CPU tag exchange, where you actually want to exchange live global tags with a Rockwell CPU, or if you want MQTT as a IoT device, any of those protocols would be a good reason to upgrade to the XL series. I have previously mentioned that the Micro OCS has its micro SD slot on the side. You can use that for data logging, recipe handling, alarm logging, program loading, saving, cloning, all those things. Up to 32 gigabyte cards are supported. If you have a larger card, it can be supported, but they have to be reformatted. And then from an approval standpoint, the Micro OCS has what you would expect. It has UL Class 1 Division 2 for hazardous locations. It has all the environmental type ratings from NEMA 4X, or I'm sorry, UL Type 4X down to UL Type 1. Yes, it does also follow the NEMA 4X standards as well, and then it would be IP66 on the IP scale. And then from a power standpoint, It can accept anywhere from 10 to 30 volts DC, most commonly used with 24 volts. It will require a class 2 supply, which means it has to be limited to about, I believe it's 96 watts or so. And then temperature-wise, it's good from -10 to 60 C. So if you've got a really wide temperature range beyond that or pushing that range, again, another reason why an XL series product might be a better choice. But for most applications that are in ambient type temperatures or a little bit hotter or a little bit colder, it'll work really well. Now, one of the things that we like to provide our customers when we can at Horner is what we call model flexibility. So you'll see in several of our different products where we'll have a group of products that are different in a variety of ways, but they'll fit into the same panel cutout. So for instance, our XLE, XLT, XL4 are 3 products that are all in the quarter DIN cutout, quarter DIN form factor. Now we also have that same model flexibility available with some of our larger units like the Micro X10. So the products I'm showing on this screen here, so that would be the Micro X7, Micro X10, along with the EXLW, XL Plus, and then the EXL6 that isn't shown. All those products, believe it or not, although their size varies quite a bit, they all have the exact same cutout, which can really offer flexibility to our customers. For example, let's compare the X7 and the X10. Those are 2 products that an OEM who is manufacturing an inexpensive machine might choose to offer on the same machine. They could offer the 7-inch product for those budget-minded customers where every dollar counts, and they could offer on the same machine with the same design an X10, which expands the screen real estate a bit and gives those customers the option of seeing things with a little bit bigger screen or putting a little bit more on the screen, for instance. So both the X7 and the X10 have the exact same cutout. They also have the exact same locations for all their connectors, communications and I/O. So if you're designing a machine and you've got a wire bundle that comes along the door hinge up to the back of the X10 or back of the X7, that door bundle, regardless of which controller is stuffed in the hole, is going to fit perfectly because the locations of every single connector are in exactly the same place. Furthermore, even though the screens are different sizes, and yes, you will have to scale your graphics or change your graphics a little bit from model to model, the units are both wide aspect ratio. And even though the aspect ratio isn't identical, it's very close. So yes, you'll have to do some graphic work from model to model, but the general layout for your screens can be the same, which again is a real advantage when you're wanting to offer your customers multiple options on the same machine with a minimum of work on your part. Okay, now let's take a look at how the Micro OCS kind of stacks up against some other products that would be available maybe in the similar size, similar price category. So let's take a look at that. Okay, so what I did here is I basically took a look at several different solutions that are on the market that are available to people today in the control industry and the automation industry, and just wanted to take a look at how do those products stack up to the Micro OCS X10, or really more importantly, how does the Micro OCS X10 stack up with them? All right, let's start with the least expensive product that I found. Now, keep in mind, Horner Automation has never purported to offer the lowest cost products out there. That's really not where we see ourselves in the automation market. We think we provide products with a great cost level, but with great value and performance as well. So we kind of look at the combination of price as well as functionality as kind of the niche where we fit. So there are a variety of competitors out there. So let's start taking a look at them. So the first one we're going to look at is a product that's actually a little bit less expensive than the Micro X10. It's a 10-inch widescreen controller from a company called Renew. And if you add some I/O on the back from that same company, then you end up with similar, I/O counts, etc., screen size, that sort of thing. And it does cost a little bit less. But we feel like that the Micro OCS product from a US manufacturer, certainly from a performance and a feature standpoint, we think that it more than makes up for the slight difference in price. Moving up to the next level, we have Automation Direct. Obviously, a company that's well established in the automation market. People are well familiar with them. So if you combine their 10-inch HMI, they don't provide an all-in-one controller solution, or they don't offer one. If you take their 10-inch HMI, combine it with one of their lowest cost PLCs and some extra I/O, you can come fairly close to matching the I/O count that you'll find on the X10 for about $100 more. Next, moving on to a company called Unitronics. They also are all-in-one controller type manufacturer. And so if you took one of their products and added Ethernet to it, now it happens to be a 7-inch product because they don't really have a 10-inch product in the same product space as the X10. They have some more expensive 10-inch products, but I thought the best comparison here would actually be their 7-inch model with an Ethernet add-on. It runs up to about $1094, so about $150 more than the X10. One thing that's pretty common for people to do is to take a low-cost HMI and marry it with a Rockwell PLC. So in this case, if you do that with a low-end Maple HMI, and you marry that with, let's say, a MicroLogix CPU and some add-on I/O to come up with a similar amount of I/O, you'll end up at $1575. And then if you go for a quote-unquote all Rockwell solution, even though it's not a Logix PLC-based solution, you'll end up with a 10.4-inch HMI plus one of their Micro 800 PLCs at about $2455. So regardless of the specifics, I think you'll see that at a glance, the Micro OCS stacks up pretty well from a pricing standpoint amongst other products that people might consider for a similar application. All right. Now, hopefully you've been pretty impressed with the product so far, but one thing we want to ground people, or ground our viewers in, is the fact that you really shouldn't use our lowest cost products to do every single application. And it's important to understand the differences between the Micro Series X10 and a similar size XL Series product to get a handle on, why do we offer two different lines at different pricing from what on the surface are all-in-one controllers with built-in I/O, et cetera, et cetera. So let's take a look. Let's start with a control comparison. So first of all, the XL series has about 4 times the logic memory, 10 times the variable memory, and 30 times the logic solving speed of the Micro series. Now, the Micro series is very capable, don't get me wrong, but you can tell at a glance, the XL series is just on a different level. So for applications that aren't as straightforward, aren't as simple, the XL series is probably a really good choice because it offers a lot more. If you've got a lot of PID loops, for instance, you're looking at 4 PID loops in a Micro OCS X10, you're looking at up to 64 of those in an EXL10, for instance. Also, with Service Pack 4 being released now, we've got some advanced IEC ladder logic capabilities that you'll be able to take advantage of in the EXL10 that the Micro OCS can't support. It does support IEC 61131, so yes, you can do structured text, etc. But some of the new advanced capabilities I'm going to detail in this upcoming Tuesday's live stream, you won't be able to take advantage of those in the Micro series. Looking at I/O, you've got 2 very capable basic I/O options with the Micro series. You have 6 widely varied I/O options with the XL series, offering higher resolution on the analog side in a lot of cases, more temperature sensors available for support, for sure, different analog signal levels, high-speed digital outputs that can handle higher speeds, for instance. So there are certainly differences on the I/O as well. And then diving in a little deeper on the high-speed signals, you have more flexibility, more configuration options with the XL series, so you can do more complicated high-speed counting for sure. And then on the output side, all the different high-speed output types are not all supported with the Micro series. For instance, you can't do step and direction on the Micro, you can do it on the XL. Looking at the graphics, from a resolution standpoint, actually, the Micro X10 has higher resolution. It's a newer product using a newer screen. Now, that being said, later in 2021, hint, hint, we'll be offering a new XL series product with a similar screen. So that advantage will be a little bit short-lived for the Micro series. But again, look at the rest of the specs: graphics memory, number of screens, number of objects per page, the ability to play back video files and to play live video. Those are all things that you can't do in a micro series. Much more capability on the XL side. And again, more flexibility on the CAN side. I'm sorry, on both the CAN and the serial port side. More protocols, certainly on CAN, more protocols serially as well. The ability to support BACnet serial protocol, as an example. The ability to have more than one CAN port, for example. So again, a lot more capability from a communication standpoint on the XL series. And if you have a really complicated communications application with multiple protocols simultaneous, transferring back and forth, the XL series might be a better choice. It all depends on what else you're doing in the application. And then looking at Ethernet, with the EXL10, you've got two separate Ethernet ports, not just a built-in switch, a completely two separate ports. Micro OCS, just one. The ability to add a Horner Wi-Fi adapter to the XL series. Don't have that in the Micro series. More protocols, including BACnet IP, MQTT, etc. A little more flexibility with WebMI, even though from the standpoint of WebMI support, they can both do it for sure. And like I mentioned on a previous slide, no support for MQTT, which is a new, or at least it's newly popular IoT type protocol, even though the protocol has been around for a while. And then peripheral wise, you can see some other comparisons here as well. So if we summarize it, we've got all that detail, but let's summarize it a little more simply. The Micro series, the best all-in-one controller for simple applications. XL series is really the performance leader in all-in-one control. So that's really what we're talking about here when we do all these individual comparisons. That's the bottom line. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about applications for the Micro X10. So really, any simple application where displaying more information at once is important. That's certainly an area where you should be considering this product. The Micro X4 and X7 are terrific products that are selling well, but their screens are considerably smaller. So in the machine, if displaying more at once is important, the X10 is probably your best choice there. Process applications, applications using maybe multiple PID loops or several different process variables. It's very convenient often to be able to display a lot of process information on a single screen so you can see what's happening on the machine and in the process. So that's an example of an application or a type of application where this criteria could be met. Also, building automation. A lot of times you want to show diagrams, locations of sensors and other peripherals. Having the ability to display kind of an overview of what's happening at the site or in the building, that's pretty convenient from a little bit larger display, even though the types of things you're doing in building automation usually is not super high speed, super complicated. You're talking about things like handling lighting control and environmental control, handling pumps and those sorts of things, monitoring level. All applications that the Micro OCS X10 can handle just fine. Other applications include, metering, mixing, dispensing, and really any small application with a variable frequency drive, again, where you want to display plenty of information on the screen. That's a good candidate for the X10. All right, now let's talk a little bit about the material that's available now for the Micro OCS X10, since today is launch day. So we've got an updated product page at our website, so you can navigate the normal way from our homepage to, our products, all-in-one control, to the Micro series, and then you can find there the X10. You'll also find our unboxing video, which we kind of showed at the beginning of the session today, that cheesy video that I made last week that we had fun with. There's also plenty of technical documentation, a cut sheet for the product, quick start guide, user's manual. The user's manual is something you should not overlook. Very often when we're talking about, how big is the cutout, what are the specs, the cut sheets are great for that. Also quick start guides. But when you're talking about what are the specifics for the high-speed counting, what are system registers that I really should care about in my application, those sorts of details can be easily found in the user's manual. So don't forget to download that if you're going to use the product. Now, for those of you out there who are channel partners, the sales sheet and sales literature is available for order, and the price list, the Horner price list, has been updated. So you should have that information already. Now, one thing I didn't mention, I'm going to go ahead and show it to you now, is we also have a starter kit, which is really a terrific value. Available from our website or from your local channel partner, you have the ability to order an X10 as part of a starter kit. And that starter kit includes everything you see on the screen here. So it's got every kind of cable you could imagine for configuring an OCS of just about any vintage. So configuring it from a USB to serial adapter, communications with a old school 9-pin Horner OCS all the way up to the latest models like the Micro X10. A mini USB cable that fits the right size from a USB standpoint. So all this is included. Oh, and along with a 24-volt power supply or a wall wart that plugs into the wall to power it while it's at your desk and you're working with it. So all this is included with the starter kit. We highly recommend it and encourage you to order it if you're going to try out the X10. And again, you can get it from our website or you can get it from your local distributor. And one thing you'll definitely like, you can order one starter kit at the same price that the unit costs. So for no extra cost for that first purchase, you can get everything you see here for the X10 along with the X10. Okay, back to the presentation. We've talked about this briefly before, but the Micro OCS X10 has a list price of $949, which is a terrific value, and it is now shipping. So it's available for order, both again as a standalone unit and as part of the X10 starter kit. Okay, we've now reached the part of our program where we can answer any questions that you might have. So if there's anything that's on your mind question-wise, feel free to type it in now if you haven't already.
Hey, Chuck.
And yeah.
They've been posting them in the chat portion instead of the Q&A. So you might want to check there. Casey's been answering some of them, but.
Okay. I will check that out. Let's see here. Active chats. See if I can see those. Actually, I don't think I can. I'm not seeing those. So do you have any that you want to read me and I'll go ahead and answer those?
We have one from Terry Voigt. Does the screen have any resistance to UV? For example, will the screen fade over time after being exposed to direct sunlight?
Sure. So generally, most of our products are designed with UV stable materials, which means that generally they won't break down when exposed to UV, unlike a lot of our competitors' products, where typically they will use a little bit cheaper plastic, for instance, which is not UV stable. And that's something that we typically don't do. It costs us a little bit more money, but it gives a little bit better specification and result. I believe on the Micro OCS X10 that we are using UV stable materials as well. But I will say, if you have an outdoor application, most of the time an XL series product might be a better choice because it has a wider temperature range available for several of the models, including the XL7, XL4, etc. But in general, I believe we are using UV stable materials on the Micro X10.
Okay, we also had Peter made a nice note regarding screen protection. New Shield makes some custom protections. Use Horner APG from the drop-down and select the model you need. And he put the website of newshield.com.
Great. Thanks for that, Peter. Peter's one of our valued channel partners. And yeah, New Shield is a company, and the link is where Peter posted it. NUSHIELD, for those who don't see the link there. It's a company that specializes in add-on screen protection for a whole variety of devices, everything from industrial devices like the OCS to touchscreen in your convertible, so you can see it a little bit better when you're driving down the road. So definitely something to check out for sure.
And it looks like Casey has answered all of the other questions.
Okay, very good. Well, thanks everyone for joining us. I will say before we move on and wrap things up for today, don't miss our weekly live streams. And we understand you can't attend every week possibly, but you always have the ability to watch replays on our YouTube channel. So our weekly live streams are every Tuesday at 2 o'clock Eastern, and they almost always feature live demos and live Q&A. The next session we have planned for this upcoming week is Seascape 9.9 Service Pack 4 Part 2. So in Part 1, we talked about the first half of the new features available in 9.9 Service Pack 4. And next week, we'll be talking about the second half of the new features, which really focuses on the enhanced IEC 61131 capabilities with Service Pack 4. And those are all capabilities that are available in the XL series. So those would be available in the EXL10, XL Plus, XL7, etc. And those are expanded or enhanced features such as simulation and single step and breakpoints and online programming, which we haven't supported in IEC language until now. We have supported online programming in advanced ladder and advanced ladder with tags in a lot of our products. We encourage you not to miss that. It's got lots of good information every week, and we appreciate your attendance today. So as we're heading out, for those of you who missed the video at the beginning, we'll go ahead and close things out by playing our fun unpacking cheesy video again. And again, thanks for joining us. If you've already seen the video, go ahead and head on out. Otherwise, feel free to check it out. Ooh, I've got something pretty exciting here. The new Micro OCS X10. Let's take a look. Let's get this open and see what's inside. Got the user's guide, quick reference guide at least. Some protective foam. There's the unit right there. Looks pretty sleek. Not bad for an industrial unit. What is that? Maybe an inch at the front. 2.5 inches total. Not bad. Here's the connectors. Looks like we're also including metal clamps with this one. Nice. Looks like all the connections are on the back. I really like that about the Micro OCS. Yep, they're all here. Mini USB for programming. A couple of serial ports. CAN port. Ethernet port. Here's where you bring in the power. And there's those 3 connectors for those 30 I/O points. Wow, think of the applications with 30 I/O built in. About the only thing that isn't on the back is the micro SD slot. I think that's on the side here. Yep, there it is. All right, let's flip it over, power it up, and see what that screen looks like. All right, apply power, and flip it over. Wow, already booted up. That's pretty fast. Nice looking screen. 10 inches diagonal. Widescreen aspect ratio. Pretty cool. Nice graphic. Can't wait to play with this baby. Once again, thanks for joining us for the X10 launch. Don't forget about the X10 starter kit, which is a great value. And again, thanks for joining us today.